Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is Andy. I feel so rusty. I haven't recorded in ages with the holidays, but we're back, and it's a new year, and it's already starting off as a crazy one. And we're here with Krystal King, singer-songwriter. Has a new song. Is it officially out? Is it coming out? Because it had a
Yeah,
release of January, but not a date.
January 26th. So the end of the,
26.
yep.
Cool. Um, so as I was talking before, we can't add it to the podcast episode because this podcast will come out in like 3 or 4 days. So,
Yes.
um, but welcome to the show, man. Like,
Yeah,
we
for
get a
having
lot of
me.
musicians, but we don't get a lot of country musicians.
Oh,
I don't know why that is.
I know. I love country music. Are you a country music fan? Oh,
Uh,
breaking my heart.
uh, well, my
I went full get up today
musical
too, like hat
Yeah,
and
I know
all.
you're rocking the cowboy hat. Um, and I'm very much like this is totally off topic, which is normal, but I've been watching these guys on TikTok make like these custom hats, and they like weather them and add all these cool things to them. Like, I kind of want to be a hat person. Do you feel
Like,
there's
I
hat
want to be
people?
a cowboy. Can I be
Yeah,
a
well, I
cowboy?
mean they're kind of like cowboy hats and bowler hats and just a wide
Hmm.
like.
Yeah. It's a
I'm
very
also
Americana look, like just the
Yeah.
leather. Yeah.
And are you in a like I can probably count on one finger the number of people I see in Massachusetts that wear a cowboy hat on the regular. Um I mean where are you located? Are you in Nashville? Is that
I'm in Nashville. Yeah.
okay? So it must be commonplace down there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not super often that you see people in hats, but occasionally, definitely more so than probably other places other than Texas.
Yeah. Um so I my music tastes are eclectic. They're kind of all over the road. I think the most country I go is probably Johnny Cash,
Okay.
but I feel
Okay.
like he kind of any Pandora channel you put on, I think eventually goes to Johnny Cash for some reason. Uh, so make me country fan. Like, what am I missing?
Yeah. Oh God. Well, so I grew up in the 90s, and
Hmm.
so that Alan Jackson, Dixie Chicks, that kind of honky tonk sound was what I loved, which I know is a bit much for some folks. But I also love just like the storytelling. And actually, even if you're not a country fan, I think the new song that I'm putting out is one that's kind of can be cross genre.
Yeah.
It's definitely a dark country song. So if you like more like Johnny Cash storytelling,
Hmm.
kind of dark vibes, then this song's for you. So yeah,
You grew up in the '90s? Is that right?
I did.
Wow, good for you. I would have never have guessed that. You look great. I
Thanks.
also grew up in the '90s. I do not look so great. My birthday was literally 2 days ago, and I'm kind of struggling with it. But
Happy birthday.
thank you. But I am so it's weird. I am a fan of Irish music, and every
Okay.
once in a while, I'm like, this is very much not far from country music.
Okay. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
they
can
have
see that.
banjos and
Hmm.
violins or fiddles or however you would like to refer to them.
Yeah.
Um, do you think there's like because I don't think of Irish music as a direct connection to country music. Like, how, do you think there is that connection, or am I just kind of seeing things?
No, I think country's kind of a really blended genre. Like if you look back into the roots, it's I don't know the whole history, but I do remember even watching this documentary talking about how hip hop has kind of made its way into country music. With
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Wallen and with the I think it was talking about Old Town Road with Little Nas, and it was saying like, oh, it's kind of not people seem so shocked that hip hop and country are coming together, but they're like it's inevitable that it happens because both are rooted in like storytelling and telling your truth and
Mm-hmm.
like talking about real life. And even some of the instrumental background is true too. And I mean, banjo's known in what was it? I feel like it was like even in like jazz at some point. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely crossed over into a lot of genres. And these days, what are genres because they all
Oh,
kind of
there is, yeah, it is.
um,
Everything is just blended.
yeah.
But you made me actually forget of a band that I do enjoy, and I always think of them as a hip hop first band, as
Hmm.
Gangster Grass,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they're a bluegrass band with MCs, and um
So
you brought up Old Town Road, and I'm a fan of the song, but I don't like Little Nas. Is it Billy Ray Cyrus that did that with him?
yeah,
I don't like that
I don't like the
version.
song, but
Um, but there's a Canadian band called Walk Off the Earth,
okay.
and they do a version of it that is amazing.
Okay, I'll have to check the what's it called? Or what are they
The
called?
Walk Off the Earth.
Walk off. I'm writing it down.
So it's I think there's four of them, and they're sitting around like luggage, and they have like jars of picks and all these little things, and like the handbells that you see like around Christmas time,
Oh wow.
and it is the most elaborate video. And there, I'll send you a link in
Okay, cool.
on Instagram.
You were talking about Irish music.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a Scottish band, but they're one of my friend's favorites. Are you familiar with like Albanac or
Almanac. No,
I may have pronounced it wrong, but I think they're mostly instrumental. But if you like that style,
I'll have to check that
uh,
out.
yeah,
This is why I do the podcast. It's just to find out about new music.
yeah, no.
um, so you're I was it's House Fires the song, and you
hmm
were nice enough to send it to me, and it is I don't it's not bluegrassy. I would say it's a little more like pop country. If that, I hope that's not insulting.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not. It's not.
Okay,
I don't usually consider myself pop country, but it definitely has kind of that catchy
it's
chorus
very
thing.
catchy. Yeah, yeah.
I usually equate it to kind of Sugarland esque.
Okay.
It's usually the comparison I make. Like it's not pop country as in like Sam Hunt or it's not bro country or got backbeats or snap tracks.
Yeah.
But it is kind of poppy in the fact of like just that catchy hook thing. And then, a lot of those harmonies, it's very thick on harmonies in the chorus, which is a very like Sugarland-esque thing. So yeah, so I consider it kind of like it's country, but it's got some pop elements. It also
Mhm.
has some like rock roots sounds too, but it's
So
definitely a blend.
did you kind of have that in mind when you're writing it, or like you're like, this is the direction I want to go in, or did it kind of more evolve like that's just how the song wanted to be?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of both. I think I wanted it to kind of have this not blues, but like kind of just that raw blues-esque
Mm-hmm.
to it. Americana vibe. But I still, while I am a country artist, so I want to keep it commercial enough for radio if they
Sure.
should want to play it. But the process for recording was really untraditional. I didn't hire a producer or anything. So I just hired some musicians and we went to a student studio.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a producer there, but it was less about producing my music and more about him guiding the students to get me a good recording.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so we went in, recorded the basic tracks, and then I met with a mixer afterwards, and me and him would kind of like piece together what we liked, and then be like, okay, trash that. We're gonna have somebody redo this. So we had different instrumentalists and people come in to redo parts and kind of hodgepodge it together.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely use the feedback of some producers, but I didn't have somebody like produce it from the get go. So the songs just kind of came what they became, which was cool, actually. I think like in my future projects, I'm actually a little nervous because I'm like, I don't like, I want a producer because I want to have, that guide from the get go. But at the same time, it was really cool how authentically things just kind of came together and fell into place. And when I got done, it felt right. Like it wasn't like I wasn't second guessing it and being like, oh man. And I just don't know if I can find a producer that can replicate that process. So
Yeah.
it was cool, but it came out how I wanted it, but different than I probably had pictured it from the get-go.
Yeah, I kind of love doing stuff like that where you have a vague idea and then it just kind of like becomes
Yeah.
its thing because I feel like when you have such a rigid idea, one, you never feel like you hit it. You know, we're creative
Yeah.
people. We're never happy with what we've done. And
Hmm.
it just never has that, when you have a very loose plan, you pick up things along the way that you never expect.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
working
exactly.
with students, I could see being a real challenge, but also interesting. Like that.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. It provided me with free studio time, so that's how
Yeah.
that came about. And I'll do anything to save a dollar. So, um, yeah, so I just picked my musicians, and um, it was just kind of cool seeing how their ideas would bounce off of each other. So instead of it being like the producer's vision and then the instrumentalist trying to fill that in, it was kind of just a very collaborative process. Like the guy I hired for keys would throw in some ideas and be like, "How about this?" And I would be like, "Let's just throw it at the wall, see if it sticks." And he would come up with different ideas for harmonies, and we used about 5 different guitar players for the entire project. So we got a taste of a little bit of everybody. The acoustic guitar player used to play for Krystal Gale, so he's definitely got more of that like honky tonk
Hmm.
old school vibe. But then the steel player I use, he does a lot of like almost like electronic steel. I don't know what they're called, but it's like a lap steel, and he does a lot of experimental sounds with that. So that kind of added in this other, just I call him like he plays the weird stuff. He's not afraid to try
Okay.
something new. Um, yeah, and so it was fun because it definitely didn't come out cookie cutter. So it may not have been as commercial as if I'd hired a producer, but it definitely was a unique sound, and I was appreciative of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh, so you're located in Nashville, and I mean, it's a mecca of music, especially country music. And I have a lot of friends, or a few friends, I should say, that have spent time down there, either to work on their music career or whatnot.
Yeah.
Is it easier because to have a music career because it is such a musical town, or is it more challenging? Like, is it one of those more challenging because everyone's trying to get in there, or like how what is that like experience like?
It's both. It's
Yeah.
both. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. I think it was definitely good for me when I moved here because it just kind of got like the fire lit under my butt.
Hmm.
Because when you're surrounded with people that are all doing the same thing, it forces you to get better, and you learn and you grow and you collaborate with them. But you also know you kind of have to work your butt off, otherwise, like the next person in line's ready to go. So
Yeah.
if you're not ready, they will be. So it kind of forced me to just like jump in and go and do it. Where I think whenever I was living outside of town, I just didn't really know how to get started and didn't know how to just get up and go and jump into the music world.
Hmm.
It also was a great thing for community and finding the right network for me, because when I lived in North Carolina and I was in Charlotte, like I just couldn't find like a country music community. I found people that played music, but their music was totally different than what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So in that ways, it's been great. And just being surrounded by talent all the time is amazing. Um, Challenging though, yes, because everybody's fighting for gigs in town. Also, because there's so many musicians, pay is not as good in Nashville. So you kind of tend to make
Sure.
more fans and more money outside of town. So I found Nashville's kind of a great like home base for me for networking and collaborating. But it's as far as like building my fan base and getting gigs that are paying more, and I'm not working, I'm not grinding so hard to make less money
Hmm.
um, when I go out of town. Just because when you come to Nashville, people are just so enamored by all the music.
Yeah.
So less likely to be like, ooh, this person, I'm going to follow them and be an avid fan. Where you go to a town that doesn't get good live music very often, they're like, yes, this person, I like their music, I'm going to follow it. But in
And
Nashville,
yeah,
you just
and
hop to the next bar and there's somebody else.
and the next time you're there, people are like, no, we have to go.
Yeah.
We weirdly are experiencing a similar thing. We run a lot of events at bars, breweries, restaurants, that sort of thing, and we're based in Plymouth. And I'm always trying to get my friends and associates to realize that we're a Plymouth based company, not a Plymouth company, because
Mm-hmm.
we do so much better when we drive an hour away because
Mm-hmm.
we're in Plymouth, we're like, oh, you can catch us here, or in a week you can catch us here, and a week after that you can catch us there. Like we're always in Plymouth. But yeah, that's a really good point. That sometimes it's best to kind of get out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there,
Yeah, it's just
it's yeah,
saturated. That's all it is. It's
yeah,
nothing wrong with anybody. It's not people aren't out to get us or anything. It's just there's just so many people. So
hmm
um
but being
that's
in a
just
community like that
yeah.
definitely keeps you focused, and you know that that's
Mm-hmm.
that's very cool. Yeah, we have a very musical area. I moved to Plymouth about 11 years ago, 12 years ago,
Okay.
and it is just a absolute lucky thing to live here. Like the music scene's great, the art scene's great, the stand-up comics, like for whatever reason, it draws creative people to this area.
That's
And
awesome.
especially like older musicians, I'm finding like kind of semi-retired, like the lead singer from the hair metal band Striper lives in town. And
Oh,
there's a woman here who used to be like a personal assistant to Led Zeppelin, like back in their heyday. It's insane. Like every time you turn around, someone's like, "Oh yeah, I used to play
yeah,
keyboards
I
for
know this person.
Ministry." Yeah. Um, but I believe you have a summer tour announced. Is that correct? Or was that an old
Uh,
post that I saw?
that might be an old post.
Oh, okay, all right.
I am, I'm still working on 2024 booking. We got some big shows coming up, but still kind of working on filling out the summer. But there definitely will be a tour, and there will definitely be plenty of stops this summer. But just still kind of gathering those up. I think the first like bigger show is I'm playing Panama City. It's called Rendezvous. It's a parrot head event. If you're familiar at all with parrot heads.
Yes, I mean it's got to be a sad year for the Parrot Heads.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's here. But I started touring a couple years ago with my friend Kirsty, and um, I write some like dark songs, dark country, but I also like a lot of like humorous songs.
hmm
Um, so like one of them on my album's about murdering my husband and burying him in the backyard, and just I like to write funny, light stuff. Um, and
That's
so she
hysterical. I'm sure he finds it very funny.
he um but yeah, so she took me to Florida, and then she got involved in the parrot head community, and she was like, oh, they'll love you. And I was like, I don't know, like I don't really write like beachy happy songs. But she was like, nah, trust me, you'll be fine. And she was right. And they just kind of welcomed us with open arms, whether our songs were about the beach or not. And so we've started going to some of those events, and now I'm DJing on Radio Margaritaville, which is
Oh, that's
random
awesome.
fun.
Yeah.
And it's just been like a whole other world and other place of networking. So, but gosh, the Parrothead people are so supportive.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's interesting. Like there's all like the Parrot Heads, and you know, up here it's jam bands. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a jam band.
yeah,
Um, but I do feel like there's less of, when I was a kid, you listen to one type of music, and I don't feel like people do that anymore, which is it's a
no,
great
people,
thing. And so I love that kind of that. I never would have thought of country music and Jimmy Buffett fans kind of overlapping like that.
yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I think Jimmy Buffett originally wanted to be a country music artist. Um, and then he just discovered that there was this whole market untapped, and he was a brilliant businessman. So
Yeah,
he
for
was
sure.
like, you know what, actually I can kind of pave my own way here. And he opened a lot of doors for himself by just good branding.
hmm
um Love him or hate him for it, that's he was successful with what he did. So, but a lot of his, especially his older stuff, you can really hear the country influence. And, he collaborated with Kenny Chesney, Zach Brown, Alan Jackson, a lot of George Strait. So ton of kind of country artists. So it's kind of just funny. I never thought I would be in the Parrot Head world, but
Yeah.
life just kind of falls funny sometimes.
It, creativity is so weird where when you find success, it can be considered that you're quote unquote selling out. Where like if you're a used car man and you're like, oh, I'm selling more Priuses than I've ever sold before, no one's gonna be like, oh, you're a sellout. I'm not gonna shop here anymore. But if you're a country musician and you know, team up with a hip hop artist or you kind of vary a little bit and you find success, then like some of your true fans can kind of like call you out, I guess, and
Yeah.
lose. It's such a weird thing
And
for
I
that kind of thing.
for me, I think about it like, okay, mainstream stuff is popular for a reason. People
Right.
like it or it's catchy. So if doing a song that is more on that mainstream commercial radar helps me to get my art out there and then later be able to do more of what I like. I mean, you think like Eric Church, he put out hits and now he's kind of like his music's kind of funk, kind of country, kind of rock, and he does kind of his own thing, but he puts out a mainstream song every few years, and he can have his fans that follow him around and dig what he does outside of that too. So, I mean, I think there's always room to do something that's more, I guess, available to the masses or that people will like. And I don't think it necessarily has to be selling out. I think for me, like selling out would be doing something that is against my like moral code or the brands that I want to represent of who I
Mm-hmm.
am. But I don't think like experimenting with different genres or putting out a mainstream song so that you can achieve more success is necessarily selling out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree.
If it
And
allows you to put out the art that you want to later on, then
yeah,
go
it
for it.
allows you to create more art and
Right.
have a job in a creative field opposed to being like, oh, I make the music exactly I want to, but I'm still a garbage man, you know?
Right. I mean, and I tell new artists all the time because I hear, you hear people when they move to town, they're like, I don't want to play cover gigs. And I'm like, you know what? But cover gigs do allow you to sneak in your originals. I've made
Yep.
fans for a lot of gigs where I got their attention with 3 or 4 covers that they loved. And then I was like, hey, but here's my song. And then they're like, oh my, I love that. That's awesome. Let's hear more of that. And so sometimes it just allows you to get their attention.
And you know, it's there's so many musicians around here and you know, they all have their music that they're working on, but it is the community I live in is very much um cover bands, cover bands, cover bands. It's
Mm-hmm.
just what you know. I personally kind of hate it because it's like there's amazing bands here that can't even half fill a room, but then someone who that does it, and this is no shade on Tom Petty, but will do like a Tom Petty tribute band, and they sell out weeks in advance, and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
you're missing the point. But yeah,
Yeah.
and like if my friend is playing out and they'll be like, oh, does anybody have requests? If I know what their song is, I'll be like, yeah, Jeff, play Gravity, you know, and they'd be like, oh, okay, I'll play my song and be like, yeah, you know, that kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best way to do it, you know, kind of
Yeah. I mean,
squeak your songs in.
right. I'm always about, trying to squeeze in my original stuff whenever I can. Even when I played downtown and you're technically not supposed to do originals, I would sneak them in. And I was like, as long as people aren't leaving, it shouldn't
Yeah.
matter. And so it's hard though. It definitely sometimes is tough, but you just have to remind yourself to pay your dues and stay humble in that and just, keep making your art and it's gonna fall on the right ears at some point and get you to that next level. So
Is there a Nashville standard request that the musicians are like, ugh. I'll tell you, here it's Wagon Wheel, where
Yeah, Wagon Wheel, I would
uh
say, is definitely one of them. Um, just another one. Picture, like Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow.
oh,
That
okay.
one gets requested a lot.
Okay.
Um, what else gets requested a
We get
lot?
especially for female musicians as oh, it's Four Non Blondes, and I can't remember the name of the song
Oh,
because
what's up?
yes, yeah, yeah. I'm like, it's not. It's one of those songs where like the name of the song isn't prominent in the song. Yeah, that
I actually love singing that song. I
it's a
don't.
great
It's just
song, but like sometimes you're like, ugh, that's the fifth time I've
um,
heard it this week.
yeah, like Country Roads, any sing along really,
Yeah.
and was pretty big. I haven't played in like downtown on Broadway in a while, so I haven't. I don't know what the up to date requests are there, but
So you said when you play downtown that you're not supposed to play originals. Is that like an unwritten rule? Or is that kind of like a club standard or?
it depends. Some bars will explicitly say no originals, um, and some don't say that, but it's kind of just like unwritten rule. Like you just don't unless you can do like one or two here or there as
Hmm.
long as it's kind of catchy and nobody's like leaving. Like you can definitely sneak them in, and
Yeah.
every bar is like anti originals, but there are a few. I do remember that I would get like texts and they'd be like, just a reminder to everybody, no originals. Or
Wow. That's interesting.
so except for
Hmm.
if anybody requested it, I was like, well, they requested it, I'm gonna do an original.
Yeah.
There's also bars that like are explicitly like Alan Jackson bars is like just country music. So if somebody even requests like a rock song, you're not allowed to play it. So it's just different rules for different bars. They are trying to get more writers rounds and original showcases down there though. I know
Yeah.
Whiskey Jam has moved down to Broadway. Um, and there's a lot of little like writers rounds that are kind of popping up downtown too.
That's really interesting. Like I'm not saying it's better or worse, but here they're just definitely like they don't care. Like as long as if people are staying and hanging out and having drinks, whatever, they could care less what you're playing. And you get some really interesting covers. It's very popular for people to do acoustic versions of Snoop Dogg or Cranberries. You get a lot of,
Like
and
Zombie.
yeah, yeah, and
You hear that one on downtown a lot too.
then a good buddy of mine, Jeff Hilliard, he's kind of known as he's like the '90s grunge guy. Like he's playing '90s grunge. If you request something else, he'll probably play '90s grunge. And I don't know if you ever heard. Have you ever heard the band Ween?
I don't know them. No.
Yeah, they're actually more popular now than I think they've ever been, but they're very weird and obscure. And there's one day, like it's a bar that has two floors, and I'm up on the top floor. I'm like, is he playing Ween? Like, what is going on? But yeah, it's I I I love bars when people are really into the music because I feel like there's two different experiences where people are really into it, or there's just a guy playing and other people are just happen to be there. You know,
Yeah.
it's so much
Mm-hmm.
more fun.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
is there a specific venue that you are looking forward to getting back to that's not in Nashville?
Ooh. So I did a couple festivals in my hometown this past year. I did my Hickory Oktoberfest on the main stage, and that was a ton of fun. So that's definitely something I'm hoping to do again in the new year. And as far as like smaller venues too, I really love this place called Whiskey Thief in Kentucky. So along the Bourbon Trail.
Yeah.
But it's in Frankfort, Kentucky, and I've played there a few times, and just every time the crowd is they're so chill, but they're so engaged into the music, and it just makes it for a good time. Plus, it's beautiful view, and I can drink whiskey. So,
Yeah,
or
there.
bourbon, excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got to
Bourbon,
call it
yeah.
bourbon.
I was gonna say Whiskey Thief. That's a great bar name. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, because they use the thieves, the little like things to pour the whiskey into the bottle. So
Oh,
apparently,
kind of
there's
like
like
the big
rods
like
that they pull out of the barrels.
yeah,
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 and
yeah.
those are called, or the process is called thieving.
Oh,
the
no
whiskey,
kidding.
and they,
Oh,
yeah, so people can come in and like fill up their own bottle and all that.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So are you currently, so you have the new song coming out. The music industry now like breaks my brain because it's not like your album is out, it's like your song is out and your album's coming out later. But to kind
I
of
know.
keep those people engaged or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
always, so are you currently working on new music? I guess that's the way I should phrase that. Not a new album. Are you
So
working on new music?
I am writing new music and kind of planning for the next project. But I do have an album that's done and on CD. So
Okay.
it's available to order, but it's not on streaming platforms yet. So basically I'm slowly putting out like 3 or 4 songs and then I'll put the full thing out on streaming. So if you like my stuff, you can go to my website, order that. If not, or if you just don't want to order it yet, you can wait and it'll eventually be on streaming platforms, but just not currently.
This
Um,
sounds like so much more work.
yes, I know. So I did that for a reason. I'm an independent artist, so I don't
Mhm.
have huge people backing me. I'm paying for everything myself or through my fans, and making an album is a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
So if I just put it out all at once, um, it's different for labels because they have the money to put behind all the promotion and things at once.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Where if I just put it out now, people are going to want new music in a few months. They'll
Hmm.
be over my 7 songs and ready for new stuff in a few months. So I'm kind of gradually putting out a single. I'm paying for the promotion of that single,
Yep.
waiting a few months, putting out the next one. So then it's still constantly giving music and providing content, but it's not as expensive at the get go and it spreads out my timeline. So I have more time to save for more recording. So it sounds more complicated, but it's actually been less work for me because I did the photo shoots. The music's recorded, it's ready to go. So I've already got most of the content ready for each release. I just actually have to put it on the platform and then schedule, features like this,
Yeah.
and people to talk to and radio stations and all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
so just kind of, I'm milking it.
It's funny. It's like as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I feel like it is less work when I'm on the ball and I have 3 or 4 podcast episodes lined up and
hmm
ready to go, opposed to me like running around being like, I need an episode by Monday. Who wants to talk to me?
Yeah, exactly. Singles, it singles are more popular these days just because of our attention span.
Yep.
People just don't have a very long attention span. So whether I put out a single or a whole album, it's still one release date and they're going to consume it all and be ready for the next thing. And so, yeah, this allows me to kind of have it ready to go, prepped, and then I can send it out once it's time. I think especially Spotify, from what I've heard, like the algorithms, like it's best if you're releasing something every 6 weeks.
Hmm.
So which is insane. Like that's so frequent. And obviously I'm not doing it that frequently, but the more I'm able to release and more consistently, the better for all those fun things.
I mean I hate it. I hate it, but that's the way it is. It's like, you have to post daily or, at least every
Yeah.
other day, and you always have to have something going on. And,
Oh yeah.
if
And I
people
have
engage with it more, then it
to,
does better. And
we're all still learning and kind of just hoping for the best. It's a bit of strategy and a bit of luck, I think. So
oh God, yeah. And then the second you're like, I think I have it, it
it
all
all changes.
changes. Yeah, yeah. So, and then my youngest is like, your TikTok is garbage. And I'm like, I know, because I don't have the time to learn it. Um, do you I think you contact us through Instagram. Is that like your preferred, like is that where people can go to find you? Are you doing the TikTok thing? And I know you have a
So
YouTube channel.
yeah, yeah. So I have YouTube, my website. I use Facebook and Instagram pretty frequently. I
Hmm.
have a TikTok, and I try to use it frequently, but it doesn't always happen. Because, like you said, it's just a lot more energy and a whole different style of content making. But I try to post it as often as I can. And I don't have a Twitter. Well, I made a Twitter and now I can't figure out how to log back into it.
I
So
stopped
it's
using it. I'm like,
floating out there somewhere.
we just didn't get any. No one has ever said, I found your podcast or one of your events on Twitter. And I'm like, all right, so I'm wasting my time. So like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, fine. The account's
Uh,
there and I'm sure I'll forget the login at some point, but I'm like, whatever. I just don't
oh,
care.
yeah. And well, and now like Instagram has threads, which is apparently
Get me
like
started.
pretty much
Someone
like
the other day
Twitter.
is like, oh, but blah blah and threads. And I'm like, what the hell's threads? And
I don't know.
yeah.
It's yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. So and as a musician, it's always kind of that pull because it's like, oh man, like I need to get it because what if this one blows up? I could be one of those people that's on that front peg of that, and I can ride
Yep.
that train into success. But then I'm also like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of energy for things that and you want to make sure you're putting your energy into the things that matter and that are actually productive and fruitful. And so it's always hard to balance all of that
Yeah. And like, because we'll have people be like, oh, just hire someone to do it. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. That's
because I have that money.
yeah. I have, the money to do that. But yeah, it's very gratifying when you're doing it yourself, but it can be that frustrating,
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
doing it all
and
myself. What do you want?
right.
Yeah.
And it is funny because some people like they'll ask you questions like they've got all the answers, and you're like, yeah, I get that, and thanks for the feedback, but like, there's only one of me.
Right.
um, but I mean, it's that way for all musicians. Like, I think that was even something that Lainey Wilson was posting the other day that was like, yeah, I signed my record deal, and it was still like another year before I had a hit. And still then I'm like everybody else. I'm just trying to pay my bills and try to get my stuff done. Like, until you get to a certain area or league of stardom, everybody's on the same boat.
Yeah.
You might make more money as a bigger artist, but you still got to pay for more production things and more business
More
stuff. So
staff and yeah. It's
it's a never
I
ending cycle.
had an uncle who was a doctor and he was kind of like, yeah, he's like, it seems like it's more money, but you suddenly have to, pay more insurance because you're a doctor and you have to do this and you have to kind of like, go play golf for the business networking. And it's just more things that are involved when you make more money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd like
Right.
to have those problems, but
Same. One day, but that's what I get for choosing the life of a musician. I knew from the get go it's gonna be a hustle
do
from
you
day
think
one.
how much of it is a choice though? I mean, to me, that's always that thing is
Oh
like,
yeah, I work my butt off because I'm passionate about it. So
yeah,
if I didn't, I love working. Like I love what I do, and I mean not all of it, not all the time, but for the most part, I enjoy the process and love what I do. So I work harder because of that. There's definitely some things I do that aren't necessarily necessary, if that makes sense. Like they're
yep,
not always priority, but because I'm passionate about my job, I make it a priority because I'm like, okay, I need to do all the things to put my best foot forward.
and me and my business partner frequently will kind of nudge one another and be like, hey man, we're at work right now. And we were hanging out with friends and we were, you know, bitching and complaining. We're kind of bragging a little bit, I guess. But we're launching a new event where we're bringing like monitors in and game systems. We're doing like retro video game nights. So we had to
Cool.
like test everything out, make sure we had all the system, cords and cables and blah blah blah. So we sat at the office and ordered pizza and had a couple beers and played video games all afternoon. And I'm like, this is technically work. Like we are working right now, and it's just like
Yeah.
it's why I do it because I love it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I even said on the radio station, I was like, it's pretty cool. I'm talking and singing for a living. Like
Yeah,
I can live with that. That's fine. So it's fun. It's fun stuff. And there's definitely lots of experiences that I've had through through the job. And just like when you're on the road, you try to take in as much as you can. And sometimes you do random and fun things that you wouldn't get to do otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the best.
So what is oh, go ahead.
What's the most random, cool / weird thing that you got to do?
Ooh, I feel like this whole year has been random and cool. Got to ride on like the first solar panel or the only solar panel yacht in the US. So that was
like an electric
cool.
yacht.
Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
Yacht. Got to I fed some, what are the, are they like, I don't know, some sort of giant fish that like jumps out of the water and eats the food.
Dolphin.
I fed some giant fish.
That's cool.
Let's see, what else have I done? I got to see like Craig Morgan in concert and several.
You keep
like
mentioning these people
writers.
like I'm supposed to know who they are.
Oh,
like,
sorry.
I have Eric Church written down too, so I can look up who that is.
Sorry,
That's okay. Yeah. I told you, not a country fan.
My husband named like the other day. He was like, "Who's this song by?" And he said like 3 lines or like 3 or 4 words, and I knew it instantly. And he was like, "Your country music like catalog in your head's pretty impressive." I was like, any other style music, I'm out, but country, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always crazy things, and of course you asked me that, and I can't. I'm like totally blanking right now, but definitely lots of moments where I'm like, this is my life. This is happening. That's cool.
That's all. Those are my favorite moments where you're just like, I'm on a paddle boat and the sun is setting and I'm at work. Like, it's so cool. Like, no one else gets to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, other than the guy driving the paddle boat, but whatever. So you said you have a website. If you can give our listeners the website address and your socials and all that stuff.
It's Krystal with a K, like the burgers. KrystalKingmusic.com is the website. And then most of my socials are Krystal King Music.
And so check out House Fire. Comes out on January, I think you said 26th.
26th.
Yay! Yep. I get the names and the dates right. I'm killing it today. This was a pleasure, man. I'm glad you found us. And
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, when you guys are launching something else in 6 weeks. No, but anytime you got something to promote, like hit us up. We'll have you back on. It's a lot of fun.
We'll do the Murder My Husband song will be next, so I'll hit you up for that one.
Do we need is he available to prove that he's not buried in the back? Like, do you have a picture of him with today's newspaper or something? Or...
He might can make an appearance just to prove. I know after this album, I like whenever I sing songs from this album, I always have to give a disclaimer. I'm like, hey, by the way, my marriage is fine. I'm happy. Life is good. Because I've had people like come up and be like, are you okay? Or like, are you and Andrew good?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, no, everything's great. I just really like dark songs.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's nothing wrong with it. True crime is like the biggest thing right now.
Oh, it's huge right now.
Yeah. I don't get it, but whatever.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. And listeners, we'll catch you guys again next week.
All right. Sounds great.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.